E aloha mai ohana. I'm Hanalei Ferguson from KUPUNA MOKU KEAWE, here on the Big Island. So anyway, I wanted to speak a little bit about the incident that happened on Mauna Kea yesterday. As you folks may be aware, they were attempting to do a groundbreaking for the 30-meter telescope on the northern plateau of Mauna Kea. Now, for us as Hawaiians, we already know the sacredness of that mountain. We already know that that realm of which they have their telescopes is in the realm of Keakua. And it is so sacred that nobody's allowed up there unless you have specific religious practices that you're doing. And so this has been an ongoing battle, continuously, year after year after year after year. And what's happened is that, you know, these guys are so well financed that they can take any of our arguments and twist it around and spin it around and drag us and drag us and drag us through the courts. And unfortunately, money seems to talk louder than truth. And so anyway, here's the situation. The 30-meter telescope groundbreaking was supposed to be on October 7th, which was yesterday. And I think it was on the 5th of the month, there was a note put out by the Office of Mauna Kea Management that they anticipated that there was going to be a lot of protests. So what they had in mind to do is to block off the road up to the summit, starting 10 o'clock on the night of the 6th, to prevent people from being there and trying to prevent any protests being seen by those who are investing in this 30-meter scope. And so given that, we thought about it and we go, you know what? It's really important that they need to see and they need to hear from us directly. They need to be in understanding that our position that during the Hawaiian Kingdom and that you are trespassing is very important for them to know and acknowledge. So it's a process known as notice. And so anyway, so myself and Pono Kealoha, who's on my video journalist, who very happily came up to the Big Island to help me record this. And so what we did is that we thought, okay, if they're going to block off the road, then it's important to get there first. So we went up, we had reached the site at about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and we found the exact area where their ceremony was going to be. And we had shut up to do a bunch of religious stuff, as well as prepare ourselves for this groundbreaking. Now, it was very, very interesting because although we passed several DLNR people and Office of Mauna Kea Management Rangers, nobody said anything to us as we were coming in. It wasn't until a couple hours later that they sent representatives from the Office of Mauna Kea Management, the Rangers, to come and tell us that we were going to be arrested for being there. And I had to ask them, I said, exactly what are we being arrested for? I'm here doing religious practices. I am not impeding anybody. We're not doing any kind. There's nobody to be affected by what we're doing. And so this went round and round and round. In fact, 4 times in that evening of the 6th, we were told that we were going to be arrested and that a tow truck was going to come and tow us away regardless or not. And yet nobody, not the police, not DLNR, not anybody could tell me what I was going to get arrested for. Still to this day, I do not understand what they thought they could do as far as arresting me. I was on public property. I'm a religious practitioner that's well known on Mauna Kea. I'm also from the Temple of Lono, so I have a Kuleana up there. And so anyway, so later on in the evening, probably about 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, after refusing to move and refusing or declining their invitation to move to another area, they thought it might be smart for them to bring a cultural practitioner in that may help me agree with them. So they brought in Wally Ishibashi, who is with Office of Mauna Kea Management, the Kahukumana organization, which is supposedly the elders who advise on Mauna Kea. Now, this is actually kind of welcome because I didn't know who could possibly come up and talk to me about these spiritual matters and have an understanding and a mutual respect. But Wali Ishibashi, because he has a very close, he actually has a genealogical tie to Puleahu, I thought that would be okay. So when he came in, he started to talk to us, and not only him, but also a policeman had come in who asked to come in by himself to talk to us to see if we can find out what was going on. And apparently the man was very, very religious. And we talked and we talked and we talked about what I was doing and some of the wonders of the skies and where we were, the message of Keakua and all this kind of stuff. And then he stopped and he says, you know, brother, I'm a very religious man, and I wanted to come here early to talk to you because I wanted to find out where your mind was at. And he says, and quite frankly, everything I see that's going on is absolutely pono. You know, I can't see anything wrong. He said, but I'm not the low guy on the totem pole. And so they are planning an action on you. And yet even he couldn't tell me exactly what, because the bottom line is the Office of Mauna Kea Management does not have a policing authority on the mountain. Neither do the county police. They can come up and affect something if there is actual trouble that requires police intervention. But of course, we were not doing anything. We were out in the middle of the field, parked off the road, out of the way of everybody. So there was nothing that was going on there, although the threats kept on coming down. We were even told things like, just ridiculous things like, after dark, when the telescopes turn on, that Mauna Kea becomes the private domain of the University of Hawaii, which is like, excuse me? This is our mountain. I've told you, I've taken the time to come down to talk to you guys about this, about your rulemaking, because it will not affect me as a cultural and religious practitioner. Anyway, so Wali Ishibashi shows up and he talks to us, and he's talking to us about what we're doing, and he's very, very delighted actually that we're there. He's like, wow, you guys got in here before all this stuff. That is so pono. I'm so happy to see this, although he, being under the employee of the University of Hawaii, he has to try to uphold part of their stuff. And so anyway, this went on until about 11 o'clock at night, and this is the fourth time that they were going to arrest us. And then he was going to get back to us as to what the final stance was going to be. So to make a long story short, we spent a very, very, very cold night up on the mountain. And it was freezing cold. So it was uncomfortable. At the same time, it was one of the most beautiful nights because the moon was almost full. In fact, it was going to be full the next night, or the 7th. And so in between a little bit of rest, we go out and do a few prayers here and there. And so Wali Ishibashi showed up about 5:30 in the morning to come and talk to us about what is the final line, what's going to happen. And he brought us the information that they are coming from the standpoint, they're bringing in the Sheriff's Department, DLNR, and that they're going to effect an arrest. In fact, they're going to bring up a tow truck and tow my truck away at a cost of $1,200 to me. And I explained to him, I said, you know, my truck is private property. You touch my truck, we're going to have another problem. But that being aside, you know, the objective there was not to run and have a conflict. The objective there was to try to communicate. And what was trying to be communicated is the fact that this 30-meter telescope is being put on Hawaiian Kingdom land without any authorization to utilize or convert that area for their use. Now, those of us who've been following this know that when they first did the telescopes, there was one. It was to be one telescope. We're now looking at 12, and we're coming up with the 13th. And this 13th one is the 30-meter telescope. It's the size of Aloha Stadium. And they want to put it on the northern plateau. That's 8 stories down and 12 stories high. It's the most ridiculous thing you've ever seen. But what's more troubling here is that with all the efforts and all the time we've taken to share the aloha, to share the information, it's simply disregarded. We're looked at as troublesome, but something that they're not really taking into very much consideration. And anyway, so again, one of the things I wanted to do, and when Wally came in the morning to tell me that they're going to bring in the sheriffs and the tow trucks are coming and everything else like that, and he really, you know, he said it that Stephanie Nagata from the Office of Mauna Kea Management has asked them to hold off affecting any arrest or something like that until she came, because she wanted to have the opportunity to talk to me. Now, it's very nice because Stephanie and I are good friends. We have a mutual understanding with each other, though we don't agree with everything. There's no reason why we should have a dispute, or at least be angry at each other. And so I showed Wally. I says, Wally, I says, you know, part of this thing is this 30-meter scope is going to be blessed today, and it's very important that those people of the 30-meter scope be aware of what's going on in Hawaii and the fact that this is a trespass on Hawaiian Kingdom land. And I thought this was very important because the state of Hawaii has an interest in having this there because it's money for them. University has an interest in it because it's money for them. But I wanted to make sure that the people with the 30-meter, the investors of the 30-meter scope, understand the controversy and the depth of the controversy that's going on, especially that part that deals with the Hawaiian Kingdom, because the Hawaiian Kingdom is back on the rise. It is now it's going through the international courts. It's moving ahead very, very rapidly. We no longer can hide from this idea that this is an occupied territory, a military occupation, and the state is the puppet government they put in. And so, I told Wally, I says, you know, I intend to be able to approach this group while they're in there somewhere and give them this notice, because notice is the first thing that has to happen in any kind of lawsuit or anything like that. You have to at least notice the other party to give them an opportunity to reverse their directions or whatever they need to do to avoid a conflict. And so I shared with him the notice, and I'm going to read for you the notice that we put together. And I think that you'll agree that we tried our best to do this as cleanly as possible. And so here's the notice. It's 2 pages long. But I want to read it to you because I think we did a good job and we did it correctly. And so this notice says, the Hawaiian Kingdom and Nakupuna Moko KEAWE, which is the island of Hawaii. This is the kupuna from the island of Hawaii, of which I've been entrusted as the spokesperson. And it says, a notice of trespass. You are hereby noticed that this property, located on the northern plateau of Mauna Kea, island of Hawaii, lawfully belongs to the Hawaiian Kingdom Government, and no permission has been granted by said government for its use or conversion. It is by presumption of fact that the Hawaiian Kingdom continues to exist, and there is no evidence of any lawful document or treaty of cession to the contrary. It is therefore the demand that you cease and desist and vacate the premises immediately. It continues on saying, the ramification for the failure to comply. Should you fail to comply with this notice and demand, know that you do so with complete knowledge of personal liabilities to yourselves and to your partner corporations. You may be personally liable for the fraudulent conversion, along with personal violations of international laws regarding pillage. Further note that any and all structures placed on said property is subject to confiscation without further financial compensation. And it says this action has been taken by Nakupuna Moko KEAWE, and that all the information shall be transmitted to the acting Hawaiian Kingdom Government. Signed by myself, Hanalei Ferguson, Nakupuna Moko KEAWE. And I also put my phone number down there, which is 808-938-9994. Should anybody have a question and need to have clarification. You know, I was just looking at my paper. I realized I missed one of the 9s. But anyway, so with this impending problem, and with Stefan and Agata Glenn coming up to visit with me personally, we waited out, and we thought to ourselves, you know, we've successfully maintained our position over the whole night without the arrest. And we've already been given information that they intend to, regardless of whatever laws may be violated, they were going to affect an arrest. And that they were going to tow my truck down to Hilo at a cost of $1,200, which they were going to pass on to me. And so, I'm not one of those who get intimidated by threats. However, I'm not unreasonable either. So one of the things that Wally explained to us when I kept on asking him, what is it that we're doing that is causing such a friction? This thing has not happened yet. This is 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock in the morning. Nothing has come down yet. We're not doing anything. So he explained to me in a very rational way. And this is really important, because all it takes is sharing information that is pertinent. Don't threaten me. Help me understand what it is you think that is conflicting to what you folks have in mind. So he was telling me, he says, one of the reasons why they want me to move is because the road that leads to the site is really a one-car road. And so two-way traffic is damn near impossible. And so he was telling me, he says, you know, part of the reason of this, he says that they actually have a map that they put out where they're going to come in like a train with about 7 vans and several trucks from the Office of Mauna Kea Management. And they're going to come in single file, and they were going to take the whole area, and each area had a sign for parking. And I happened to be in one of them. And I told him, I said, you know, Wally, why did somebody bring this to my attention last night instead of standing there threatening me with idle threats, not giving me an idea of what's going on? I says, now that I understand this, I have no problem actually moving out of the way. I just don't want to be bullied out. That is not my style. I said, but because you've been so reasonable. And I said, so Wally, I said, I want to show you what I am going to be doing, what I had in mind to do anyway, which was to effect the notice. And so I gave him a copy of this. And Wally said that he was assigned to the protest that was going to be happening down at the bottom at Pu'uhulu'ulu, of which, by the way, there were like 500 people down there doing their chants, and eventually they came up to the top of the mountain. But anyway, he took this information back to the organizers of the 30-meter telescope and showed them the notice I gave. And apparently it caused quite a stir, because the night before, the night of the 6th, they actually had a big gala down in Hilo about the 30-meter telescope and how they were so proud of themselves for being able to work with the Hawaiian people. And of course, that is absolutely untrue. And so he told me, he came back and he told me, he says, when they seen that, they went into a panic. They were just shocked. A lot of them understood the ramifications of such an action, if in fact what I was speaking of is true, which I have no doubt that we are being very factual. And so we decided to ourselves, look, we've effected what we needed to do. They hadn't arrested us for 4 hours. They have a whole team of people, and truly, they really did have a whole team of people and a tow truck coming to remove us. And so I said, you know, we're not losing anything by leaving this area right now, because it is a one road. And so, quite frankly, I didn't want to be stuck in this whole train and being stuck through their whole ceremony, which I don't bless myself. And so we thought, okay, we'll go down. And so Wally had already arranged for, when we were going down, we seen Wally on the road, and we pulled over, and Wally was telling me, oh, brother, I got reassigned to you. And he says, I shared this with the 30-millimeter proponents, and they were quite taken by that, and that they were going to let me address that whole body at 11:30 when they had intentions of the groundbreaking. Well, again, the purpose there was not only to do my religious stuff and talk about the sacredness of the mountain, but to affect the notice, because we need to move this idea of Hawaii being an illegal occupation further down the road, and it cannot just be stuck in academia. And so it is incumbent upon all of us to take our part, our own Kuleana, and enact whatever we can do that is consistent with this idea of occupation, and that it has to end now. And so, very interestingly, Stephanie Nagata was right behind him. Like they had said, she had said that she wanted to be there. She didn't want me to be arrested. She wanted to have a chance to speak with me. And so we pulled her on the side, and she was very, very humbled. And she talked about what we were doing. And I said, you know, Steffi, this is about getting the notice. I want to make sure that the 30-meter sponsors get this notice. It's very important, because that also makes them liable for what they do. And so I asked her if she would accept this notice. And so she read it, and she accepted the notice. And then she also said that she would take it upon herself to present this notice individually. I had 9 packages together, that she would take this notice and have it read at the site, at the ceremony. And that she gave me her personal word that she would do so. In fact, according to Wally Ishibashi, they agreed that they were going to film it, because they were not going to let my videographer, Mauna Kea in during that meet, although they would let me address the group. And so I thought, you know what, we've effected what we needed to do. Stephanie Nagata, now the head of the Office of Mauna Kea Management, has taken the responsibility of delivering this notice to the proponents of the 30-meter telescopes. And so we've really affected what we needed to do. And so we decided just to continue down the hill. And it was quite amusing in a way, because on the way down the hill, there must have been 20, 30 DLNR cars coming up, along with maybe 20 police vehicles coming up. That's all coming up to affect me, or to keep the protesters from coming up, along with the tow trucks. So they actually thought they were going to go and tow my truck. Now, I don't have any question I would have won that battle, but it would have taken a long time, and I need my truck. And so, quite honestly, we got out of there just in time. And that was also important too, because we didn't want something of bad taste, like an arrest, to affect the rest of the vigil that was going on down the mountain and the others that were coming up. And so we had made this agreement. We had this understanding. And I told him, I says, it is not necessary for me to be on the spot. If you have promised me that you will read this to the proponents of the 30-meter telescope, then my job has been affected, and I am comfortable with that. And so we went down the hill to meet with the rest of the fellas, with Pua Case and the rest of the groups that were gathering down at Pu'uhulu, which is down on the base of the mountain, down by the Saddle Road. So we had gone down there and was able to meet with everybody. There was like 500 people down there. This is on a Tuesday now. 500 people out there chanting and doing the prayers of the mountain and talking about the sacredness of the mountain. And one of the emphasis that was very predominant, which is very, very good, was that everybody kept on talking about behavior. Behavior in the realm of Keokua. It requires a humility and a mannerism, which I like to refer to as a mannerism of the Queen, that we hold ourselves dignified. And so that message was going all around the place. There were parties that were there that I was not familiar with, but that came from other islands that wanted to be part of this protest and demonstration. And so while we don't have any control over anybody else's stuff, it was important that we shared as much as we can about the sacredness of the mountain and what is proper behavior in the realm of heaven. And so we came down about 10 o'clock We were very exhausted and still frozen, quite frankly, from the night before. And then we came home and we rested. And then in the evening, I kept on reading the posts and seeing the blogs and all this kind of stuff to see where everybody else's position was taking effect. And I'm very happy to say that it was done so cleanly. Every video footage that I seen was done professionally. It was done with grace. It was done with dignity. And yet it was very, very, very I mean, they actually blocked the road. They blocked this caravan from coming in. And then when they finally figured out a way around the blockage, our people decided to walk the rest of the way in. Now that's another mile from where they were pushing everybody to do their protest to the actual site where their ceremony was. I don't know who the head gentleman was, the young man who was doing most of the speaking, but I have to say I would like to know him because he was very dignified and very cool. He was not going to relinquish his position. He was not going to let anybody double talk him like had been attempted like by Billy Canoy and stuff like that. And so I'm so honored to be part of my people. And I'm so honored that they all conducted themselves in a manner that is with the dignity of the Queen. Yeah? So we've graduated a long, long way. What's really important here is that we cannot stop now. Yeah? I believe that the crest of the wave has already crested. And now it's Papahinalo time. It's time to ride the wave. And so it's very important that we continue our actions in whatever way that we may. And I just want to express to everybody, mahalo, mahalo anui loa. From the bottom of my heart, it is so wonderful to see our people taking a position that is not only righteous, but that it is calculative and it is done dignified. Okay. And so anyway, I'm going to close this off and tell you that it turned out very wonderfully. Nobody got arrested in this whole thing, and believe me, there were over 60 cops there and DNR people. They had been lined up on the hill. They were positioned at Puakaloa for mass arrests and stuff like that. And so I just want to tell everybody it was a very successful demonstration, very successful prayer vigil, and mahalo everybody for their participation. If anybody would like to contact me, I'm Hanalei Fergustrom. I'm the spokesperson for Nakapuna Moku KEAWE. I'm also from the Temple of Lono. I can be contacted at area code 808-938-9994. And please feel free to contact me because information, the dissemination of information is so important. What we're doing now is we're trying to hone our information so it becomes very consistent. What we say is very, very consistent to eliminate some of the confusing factors with everybody going in 5 or 10 different directions. Even though we're all trying to do the same thing. The more consistent we can get, the more effective we will get. With this I say, aloha mai, aloha keakua, mahalo a nui loa. Thank you.
Here we are, man. The 2 Kuleana guys.
Activating. Already activating. I'm going. Cool.
Come on. Okay, let's go. Yeah. Fisherman, tell story.
There's a time when the sea gets rough, but the fishes, they just move with the sea.
What are you doing, Mr. Man? Every day I watch you move at lightning speed. What you got to do is sit down, relax, act patiently like the fishes in the sea. You got to hold on. There's a time when the sea gets rough, but the fishes, they just move with the sea. What are you doing, Mr. Man? Every day what you moving lightning speed. What you gotta do is sit down, relax, act patiently like the fishes in the sea. You got to hold on, you got to hold on. As fishermen say, ship sailing on the ocean, ship sailing on the ocean, ship sailing on the ocean. And my daddy say, what your daddy say? And my daddy say, what your daddy say? He say, boy, say who? He say, boy, say who? He says, sailor, 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 sailor boy, sail away. Ship sailing on the ocean, ship sailing on the ocean, ship sailing on the ocean. And my daddy say, and my daddy say, what he say? He say, boy, he say, boy, he says, sailor, 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 sailor boy, oh, sail away.
Fisherman set sail. There's a time when the sea gets rough, but the fishes, they just move in the sea.
What are you doing, modern man? Every day I watch you move at lightning speed. What you gotta do is sit down, relax, act patiently like the fishes in the sea. You got to hold